Well, maybe this woman's story will change a few minds out there. Cathy Murphy has always lived an active lifestyle. She was a competitive rower. She loved to hike and regularly practiced yoga.
It was in a spin class she first noticed a pain in her arm and shoulder, a pain that would later be determined to be a sign of a major life-threatening coronary blockage. Here's Annie Bergeron Oliver with Cathy's story.
The yoga studio is where Cathy Murphy feels most at home. She practices yoga almost every day and credits her passion for helping her get through one of the most frightening times in her life.
And it was on that mat that I started to come back again and started to feel my strength again.
Well, welcome to your class.
Again and again, Cathy felt a pain in her arm and her shoulder, a pain so aggressive she stopped doing the sports she loved. Finally, on her 50th birthday, she says it became too much.
And I remember saying to myself, okay, get yourself ready, get dressed, and just drive yourself to the hospital. Whatever this is, find out now.
Doctors in Newfoundland performed tests and a cardiac catheterization, but they missed something.
I continued to have pain in my shoulder, pain down my arm, that was getting consistently worse.
When Cathy moved to Ottawa, she sought out the Heart Institute for help. There, doctors eventually found a 95% blockage that Cathy says could have been a death sentence.
Left main coronary artery, that was called the widowmaker, and my whole, the whole reality of that was really overwhelming.
Cathy, like many women, attributed her symptoms to some stressful life events. It's something experts say is quite common.
It's much more prevalent in women not to identify with the risks of any chronic disease, in particular heart disease, compared to a male.
The atypical symptoms, combined with the unique way women are affected by heart disease, is why McDonald says a center focusing on women's heart issues is so crucial.
The reality is that cardiovascular disease is a woman's biggest health threat, but yet it's not the thing that they're most likely to talk about.
We're going to be really focusing on the spine.
Cathy says she never let heart disease define her. She is teaching yoga classes, including one to heart patients, and is looking to start a new business. Although the worst is behind her, she says she is enjoying life one step at a time.
I feel like I did before all this happened. I feel like myself.
And Cathy Murphy, who feels like herself, is here. Would it be safe to say you were shocked when you got that diagnosis that you were at risk of having a heart attack?
Absolutely. I remember the cardiologist coming out of the cardiac cath lab, and I remember being wheeled out, and they said, well, the cardiologist will visit you now in a few minutes. And I kind of led there on the stretcher thinking, God, it got really quiet in that OR. And being a nurse myself, I just thought, you know, maybe there was something, maybe there was a spasm they saw. And when the cardiologist came out, the first thing he did was take my hand, and he looked at me and he said, you know, this is critical. He said, you have a 95% blockage in your left main coronary artery. It's really high, and you have a really major decision to make. Will this be a bypass or will this be a stent? And he said, you need all the information.
Now, Cathy, why? I mean, you were active. Were you doing all the right things? Have you learned why this was going to be a problem?
Well, you know, when I reflect back on my life, my brother had his first stint when he was 26.
Okay.
So what we learned is that there was a spasm possibly that may have created a small tear that caused a blockage. But I was the nurse, I was a mental health nurse, I was a health educator at one point in my career, and I was teaching heart health, eating healthy, being smoke-free, supporting women who were vulnerable to really make good choices around, you know, quitting smoking. So I had all the information, but it was like the last thing I thought that would happen to me, because I was doing it all right.
Okay, so is it genetics then? You don't know exactly?
They're thinking that there's probably, and again, it's, you know, it's like everything. They think that there's a genetic factor that causes spasms.
You're lucky that you didn't ignore those symptoms. You got the stent. How are you feeling today?
I am feeling absolutely wonderful. It was a journey to get the stent. I initially there was an intervention in Newfoundland, but the blockage was missed, unfortunately. They did all the right things, but they didn't see it. So knowing that I came to the Ottawa Heart Institute, they found it, And I'm really happy to be here, literally and figuratively, really happy to be here.
So tell the folks at home why they should support this fabulous institution.
Well, you know, it's really important that we think about our daughters, our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers. This is something that can really save the life of one of your children.
And it can happen
to
you.
So the research that we need around women and women's heart health issues is critical. And I really support women and the partners of all the women and the brothers of a sister to really think about this.
Cathy Murphy, thank you and continued good health.